Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. Oh, I think Shane's coming. Oh, is he going to do it separately?
No.
Yeah, that's why I'm just standing to the side. The matua will stand here. I'll be at the right hand of the Father.
It was warm in there, wasn't it?
Warm.
You get a bit hot on stage.
Well, some of the questions were hot too. But I think that they were different answers.
Yeah.
You know, diverse range of answers.
Yeah,
And that's good too.
I thought it was quite a good
Yeah, go on, matua.
Just checking this, do you all have a copy of the Minister's speech? If not, I'll email it to you to stand up.
Side by side, guys, just come a little closer.
You two like each other, you can get closer.
Yes, I've just said I'm at the right hand of the Father. The matua.
All good to go?
Yeah, go on.
Could you just walk us through these conservation land changes that you've announced today?
Well, the Conservation Amendment Bill, we recognise that New Zealanders love conservation. So do we. So do I. And there's been a lot of interest generated recently in relation to the disposal and exchange provisions within the bill. There's no intention, we've had no intention to sell off large parcels of land, but it seems that the words don't necessarily match our intentions. So what we've announced today is that we'll take out the exchange and disposal provisions and look to really improve on what we currently have, the status quo. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then we'll work with others, some of whom are here today, to work on other provisions in the bill, including those provisions around, let's say, the purpose clauses that are causing a bit of excitement and energy. We'll be right into the Select Committee, or I will, after talking with my Cabinet colleagues and making sure we're all on the same waka to enable the Select Committee to understand our views and then work on these matters.
So where did the misunderstanding happen here? Why weren't you on the same waka from the beginning?
Well, I think part of the challenge here, Jason, is that there have been some maps that have been circulated that don't represent our intentions, and we don't believe they represent what we have said in the legislation. However, that's caused a bit of uncertainty, that's caused concern, and to be fair, a lot of ambiguity. So we've heard New Zealanders, we've listened to New Zealanders, and as a result, we've taken action.
So does this mean you won't be able to sell anything now?
Well, no, land is disposed of in the conservation estate on a regular basis. It was disposed of under the Honourable Eugenie Sage. It was disposed of under the 5 Labour ministers and the previous government ministers of conservation. And they are generally small parcels of land with limited or no conservation value. But again, we need to look at that, we need to work through it and make sure that we've got the right landing.
So even low quality conservation land?
Low quality conservation land has been part of a disposal process under many previous governments. What we have to be absolutely clear of are the safeguards that go around any disposal process that is used from time to time. But I've used examples over the last week to demonstrate what we are talking about.
And you've talked about mischief and mischaracterisation in this debate. I mean, where do you think that came from, and what's changed between when you made those comments and today?
Well, the suggestion that we're selling up to 60% of the estate is absolutely adjacent to the intention, adjacent to what we've said, but people are confused, and so we're clearing up that confusion.
So does removing the disposal and exchange clause mean that nothing other than stewardship land can be sold now?
No, again, we have to revert back to the status quo and improve the status quo provisions. Don't forget, land comes out on a regular basis for treaty settlements, and now and again with other arrangements like the Kōrepu Pā up north, the Pā of Hongihika, but you have to use legislation in order to effect that change. But it does come out already. It has come out under previous governments, and we need to improve not just that provision, a whole range of things in the Conservation Act to make it a better system for Kiwis and all New Zealanders.
Yeah.
What sort of improvements are you talking about?
Well, across the whole Act.
For the status quo test?
Oh, for the status quo test, to give some better safeguards. And what we proposed, it actually had a high degree of safeguards, engaging with iwi and Māori groups, referring back to the right of first refusal owner, the person who holds that right, to go through public engagement and consultation. There was a range of steps, and if you take the time to have a look at what was proposed, you'll realise that actually the safeguards in there, very clear, very strong, for a process that is sparingly used.
Look, the reality is we broadened the scope in the proposed law to make disposal more efficient and more expeditious. we have not managed to carry the public with the current provisions that are in the law. Tama is bringing back some improvements to allay the fears in the public, but also to allow DOC in the future to more efficiently transact their business. But the broad scope, as a result of his announcement, has now been neutered.
Where did this all come from? Did this come from the ninth floor? Did you make this decision yourself? How did we get to where we are today?
Well, ultimately, we took stock, we engaged across different coalition partners and people with a genuine interest and love for the land to figure out how can we ensure that we still retain an intention to safeguard processes, but also where suitable, make sure we reduce all the clunkiness. There's a lot of clunkiness in the conservation system, and it's not just in this area, it's in a whole range of areas, and that's why you see such an effort that we've put into over the last 3 years to bring something up for the Select Committee process, for first reading Select Committee process, and democracy. That's how it works.
Shane Jones, are you happy about this?
Yeah, look, we're a three-way coalition, but naturally my leader and I, we support Tama.
Thank you.
The reality is the scope was far too much for key members in the environmental community and the broader community to swallow. I think people do accept that we want DOC to be efficient, we want redundant pieces of land to be disposed of, but we don't want to open up some gaping wound that causes people to feel that there's a mass privatisation exercise about to be embarked upon.
There's still concern among conservation groups about Clause 6EA, which you've mentioned, the economic imperative.
Well, Tama has, we're waiting for Tama to bring back some refinements to that language, but the reality is there are economic affairs that currently take place on DOC land, quarrying, mining, a lot of tourism, and we want to ensure that economic matters have status in broader conservation debates, and Tama will bring back various options as to how we can get that balance correctly situated.
Minister Potaka, so will the Conservation Act have conservation as its core purpose?
It always has been, it continues to be, and we articulated that through the bill. There are some people that have different views, and we're in a democracy. We acknowledge that people can have different views, but we will be outlining our intentions, set out our observations to the Select Committee and let them run that process. Of course, there'll be others that contribute, put their hands up on submissions and try and work out, okay, what's the best wording for a range of provisions throughout the bill, but have no doubt there's economic activity that takes place on conservation right now. There's over $5 billion worth of GDP that's enabled on land of our tupuna, land that's currently in the public conservation estate. And what we want to do is make sure that we can generate further revenue in a suitable way within the conservation purpose, so we can reinvest in biodiversity, we can reinvest into saving birds, we can reinvest in fixing up some of the huts and tracks around the country.
I think the concern is people think 6EA overrides any conservation. It's economic purpose above conservation. Can you tell New Zealanders where things stand?
That's a strong concern, but our view has always been and continues to be that conservation is the overarching purpose, but it is not binary or exclusive of other things taking place, which is what we have right now. Whether or not you go to Milford Sound or the Hermitage up in Aoraki, or indeed even the Rangitoto huts over on Rangitoto, just as you go off the boat and you go past what looks like an ice cream shop. You know, there is economic activity that takes place. We want to enable that, and we also want to generate more international visitors to come and pay to access some of the land. A provision that leans into economic opportunity actually better enables that.
Look, it's ridiculous to assert that on 33% of the land there should be no economic activity. We can't afford this Luddite thinking. That's why Tama's going to bring back some improved wording.
Could I just ask about some comments that Chris Finlayson made this morning, saying that this government has gravely harmed the Māori Crown relationship? First of all, I'd just like to get your response to that, both of you, if you could.
Well, the Honourable Christopher Finlayson is entitled to his opinions and his views. But let me tell you right now, Jason, No government in history has made as much investment into marae as this government. No government in history has moved the delivery of settlement obligations and to complete on an on-track basis as this government. And no government has had to face the considerable reduction in the 2-year-old immunisation rate for Māori children. It came down from 89% to less than 65% in 2023 when this government took over, and Minister Brown and others are working feverishly to improve that.
Yeah, and in that time, though, the Waitangi Tribunal has granted a record 10 urgent inquiries into your government's policies. Is this an indication that the relationship is strained?
Well, it's an indication when you see Minister Paul Goldsmith carry through significant treaty settlements and over 24, 25 Māori co-owned or co-managed or co-delivered fast-track projects are put on Schedule 2 of the Fast Track Approvals Act. So I think that when I stand back and look at Crown-Māori relations, there's been some massive challenges, but there's also been some massive growth and progress, and that's what the Matua, I and our Cabinet colleagues are enthusiastic around.
I see the Matua giggle when I asked that question. I was wondering if you could continue as well.
Oh, look, Chris Finlayson had his go in public life. He's running a podcast seeking to boost his viewership. His remarks are gratuitous and no one cares what he thinks in our cabinet. We do believe that the recalibration in terms of changing the number of references to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi in law is necessary. And I sort of feel that the Waitangi Tribunal is sort of like a farmer's collie, lame, chasing every passing car. And we'll deal with that after the next election.
Be that as it may, I mean, the government is still spending millions of dollars through Crown law defending itself against the Waitangi Tribunal. Is this a good use of taxpayer money?
I think it's defending itself against claimants to the Waitangi Tribunal. And it's something that we've talked about. The endurance of the Waitangi Tribunal is important, and just as important is making sure that we get improvement and cut through on some of these statistics that can continue to malign young people, young Māori and whānau Māori throughout the country. And that's why we're so enthused by the investments that we're making into education, into housing, into health and other forms of well-being.
We've got documents that show it was $800,000 worth of taxpayer money defending the Treaty Principles Bill. Yeah, and there was $300 million invested into a light rail project that didn't build 10 metres of light rail. So I think we need to just square that up.
Yeah, look, Jason, we campaigned on curbing the writ of the Waitangi Tribunal. A review has taken place. Without a doubt, the Waitangi Tribunal, in my view, has gone well beyond its constitutional reservation. However, there are bigger issues in front of us in terms of our legislative timetable. We will be shrinking the number of references to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi in law, and I've no doubt as the election gets nearer, the future role, if any, of the Waitangi Tribunal will be addressed by us and the voting public.
Kia ora. Thanks for your time.
Minister Jones, why did you fly Qantas on your Canada trip last year?
Pardon?
Why did you fly Qantas on
The Matua is here to talk about the environment, and we're not playing whack-a-mole, we're not playing trivia pursuits about anything to do with any overseas trips. Tēnā koutou katoa.
It's a fair question, don't you think, Minister?
You've got the opportunity to address it, though.
Thank you. Thank you.